For this lesson, we're going to need the Creating Excel Reports sample file. It can be found under the Lesson 6 folder. And then we'll go to the Subtotals tab. And the first thing we'll talk about are subtotal reports. A subtotal report is essentially a data view where your table is outlined and subtotaled in such a way that it can be collapsed and expanded. Now you can create a subtotal report by using the subtotal feature found in the Data tab. Now it's important to note that the subtotal feature is completely different from the subtotal function discussed in Lesson 5. Before we implement the subtotal feature, it's important to sort the target table. This keeps all the like data items in your table together, allowing Excel to accurately distinguish between the data items. And so let's go through an example of creating a subtotal report. I'm going to sort my market column here. Now I'm going to place my cursor inside of my table, go to Subtotal, and this will activate a subtotal dialog box. Here you have a couple of input boxes. First you have to define at which particular data item do you want Excel to create a subtotal. In this case, I want Excel to create my subtotals after every market, so I'm going to keep it at change at each market. And by the way, I could have selected any one of the fields listed here in this table. Then it's going to ask me which function do I want to use. This is basically an operator. I can use the sum, count, average, max, min, product, and the list goes on. But here I want sum. Now it's going to ask me which fields do I want to add a subtotal to. And this is typically going to be your measurement fields or your fields that contain numbers. In this case, I want a subtotal after every revenue and units sold. Then you have a couple of options here. You can choose to replace current subtotals, which it doesn't matter right now because I don't have current subtotals, but if I did have subtotals already implemented in this particular table, they would get overwritten by this action right now. I can choose to add a page break between each of the groups, and this is used for printing purposes. If you subtotal this table and select page break between each group, then when you print, Excel will print one group at a time or one group on each page. And as you can see here, there's an option called Summary Below Data. Now this is by default checked, but in this case I want my summary above the data. And what this means is that the summary line or the grand total line, the one that's going to contain the sum for the entire group, I'd like that to be above the selections, not below the selections. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. I'll uncheck that. I'm ready to go, so I'll press the OK button. And as you can see, I've got some new totals here, and I've got a very strange looking mechanism here to the left of the first column. And this is basically your outline. So what Excel has done, it's not only added totals for every group, but also it created an outline for you. If I select level 1 on the outline, which is right here, it collapses down to just the grand total. And I'll widen this column for you. If I select level 2, it drills into grand total, giving me the totals for each of the groups that I have here. And then if I drill to level 3, I get the entire table with the totals on top of each group. What's interesting here is I can click on level 2 and have a situation where I can click only one market at a time. Now to remove a subtotal, I would simply click on the table again, click on Subtotal, and then simply click the Remove All button. And the subtotal is gone. Now let me show you a neat little trick here. I'm going to add a subtotal back. Change at each market is fine. I'm going to use sum, revenues and units, fine. And now I'll press OK to create my subtotal. And I've got my subtotals here now. I'm going to click on level 2. I'll select the range that contains all of my totals. Then I'm going to go to the Home tab. Then I'll click on Find and Select. And what I'm trying to get to is Go to Special. If I click on Go to Special, a dialog box will open up, allowing me to go to some special cells. In this case, I want to go to Visible Cells Only. When you have a subtotal and only your totals are showing, that means the rest of your rows are not showing. They're not visible. So what I want to do is select only the visible cells. I've got a selection here called Visible Cells Only. If I click this and press OK, Excel selects only those particular cells. Now I'm going to do some quick formatting. Now when I click on level 3, you'll see something impressive. I've added formatting, so now I can clearly distinguish between my totals row and the details underneath. Now, the benefit of a subtotal report is that it allows you to report on a large amount of data with too much information at once.